Um, what?
I said because I want to see.
Oh.
And
Okay, so I'm gonna do some foiling stuff, but I wanted to just start with like a general question of how do you guys feel about foiling? Do you like it? Are you overwhelmed by it? Do you prefer it over balayaging or what?
I kind of like it over open air balayaging just because I have a little bit more control and I can make it look like a balayage too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do my balayage in foils, so
Mhm.
I am a foil person.
Like it.
And I also think most of the time people bring a photo when they booked a balayage, but what they want is a foil.
Yeah. Like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Yeah, I feel like there's more versatility in foiling versus versatility in balayaging.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Mm.
Lily, how do you feel about foiling? Having like,
I
just
like
not beautiful.
foiling. I think I like balayaging a little bit more, but I like to add foils in my balayages anyway, so I still end up doing it.
Yeah, cool. I like it. So I used to feel very overwhelmed by foils. It has now become probably one of my favorite things to do as a hairdresser is to foil. And that is because I took what overwhelmed me and I gave myself a solution, essentially. So I used to feel very overwhelmed by like where to start, like literally on the head, where do I start? How do I know where to start? How many do I put in? How I used to think that, and I feel like I was probably taught this from beauty school too, that like the blonder someone wants to be, the more foils you need to put in. And so it was all about quantity versus time allotted. How do I not worry about processing time if it's taking me an hour to get from one spot, from one part of the head till I'm done. And as I just said that, I realized I didn't mix it yet, but I'll do that in a minute. And so I wanted to create like a system for myself that would be relatively universal head to head. Obviously there are nuances within each client, right? Their hair density, all kinds of stuff, right? Pattern, curl patterns, all those things. But I wanted to create something for myself that was going to be relatively universal so that I didn't have to think throughout the entire thing. I could do it sort of mindlessly and know that I'm going to get a quality look in the end, and it was going to be efficient because our time is our money. Our time is really important. So I had to ask myself, okay, where do I start? What is the most important thing, right? So I feel like I used to, and this is again, probably because in beauty school we were taught very kind of utilitarian placement, and I had been taught always to start in the back of the crown and work my way forward in a mohawk. But what I was coming to, especially because I was over foiling, I was putting far too many foils in. So by the time I'm getting to the front, this is done. This is nowhere near done. I don't need a foil at the back of I don't need a bright piece at the back of my head. I need a bright piece at the front of the head. So I changed up where I was starting. And I also wanted to think about how to maximize the effect of less foils. So, because I was also noticing that the more I was packing these foils in, it didn't make them look blonder, brighter, quote unquote. I feel like those are, I want to look really bright. I want to be bright. And I feel like I wasn't getting that effective brightness because it was all flat. It was all relatively the same color in the end. I was lacking the depth and dimension by leaving negative space in the hair that I wasn't touching with lightener or high lift or whatever it is I'm using. And so I came up with placement that contours the highlight toward the face. The other thing I really wanted to achieve was beautiful grow out. Was to get something so blended without losing the bold brightness. So, I contour everything off of the hairline. I do a lot of angles, and then I think one of the biggest things for me is I do not work perpendicular to the part, I work parallel to the part. Because I think even if you take teeny tiny sections and little subsections, you always can see exactly where your foil lays, has been placed. So I have sectioned Allie, this is my friend Allie, off on kind of one side of the head with little ponytails so that I can show you my sections, but then I'm gonna go in and I'm actually gonna foil starting here so that you can see me work, and then when Jamie's going, I'm gonna finish the other side. So, I always start right here at this hairline. I actually start at the top of my section and I work down, and that again is for efficiency. So I'm just putting up a foil every time. I'm not having to take it all down, make a section, put it all back up every single time. Does that make sense? So if I
starting on the hairline.
if I start here and I work my way up, right, I'm having to take my section down for each new foil. That's just cutting into my time. But I know exactly, I know the angle of her hairline. So I mirror that in how I start my section. I take that same angle up here, and then I can just go right down to where I want to land. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you pre-section like that?
I don't pre-section
So
like
you
that.
just take
This
what
is
you
for
know,
visual.
that
Okay.
first chunk, if you
Uh-huh.
will, of like
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 foils.
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
And then when I actually go in to do this side, you'll kind of just see how I make my way there. But this is negative space. I'm not foiling this. I'm leaving that out. So this is highlighted, this is left. Then I have another section where I come right up, basically where like that money piece would kind of be. So it's just peeking out from above the temple, right near the front of the part, so that we can see that little piece. And again, and then I just sort of do these little like pie shapes down to my next section. So when I take pie shapes, I'm gonna have all my points are gonna come from relatively the same spot. That's gonna give me my little bold piece, and then it's gonna diffuse back so that all my, like the point of focus of the highlight is gonna be around the face. It's not gonna be back here. I don't need a bunch of highlights collecting back here next to her crown, right? Above her ear. I want it around the face. So if I take these little pie sections and I slowly wedge my way out, I have all my highlight is starting here at the tip at the front, and then it just softly diffuses back to where I don't need all that color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then I have another negative section. And then on the part, I start right on the part and I weave it. So usually I will take the thinnest little section, and you'll see that when I come over here and I'm foiling. I take the thinnest little section and I get rid of it. I pull it out of my way. Just, I mean, you could read a newspaper through it, really little. And then I weave my first two, and then I slice again. And I slice pretty much everything because I just take really little sections. And so I'm getting all the like sheets of color I want, but because it's fine, it's soft. I'm not gonna see that line starting. Are we following? Okay. So, and then I'll get here too, but this is my crown section. I basically work in a V. I take a triangle, I work in a V, but I never, hardly ever do the hair on the actual whirl. So when the hair falls, you can see like she's got a split like that, right? Because one of the things that I I'm not a big fan of is when the hair splits and you just see
Lineage.
these lines. You just see exactly where that foil was placed. And so what's gonna happen is that's just gonna fall over the top and you're still gonna get all this color just melting out from underneath. And then when this hair falls over, that's when you get that very, like all the pictures that we get, right? There's like this halo of color, right? Yeah, and then all this up in here is just sort of left alone, and we're getting all the brightness where we want it. We're getting this really soft, natural looking fade back, and we're still keeping dimension in the back so that there's continuity around the head, but it's all contoured almost like a face makeup. Like, where do you want to put your highlight? You want to put your highlight where the bones of the face stick up, right? On your cheekbones, on your nose, on your chin, on your brow bone, things like that. You want to create the depth in your like more hollow spots, right? Like you want to bring your bronzer or whatever it is underneath your cheekbone, maybe under your chin when you want to hide that thing a little bit. And so leaving these negative spaces strategically is gonna actually give my highlights more effect because they have something dark to sit on. So they're actually gonna pop and they're going to then look brighter. I actually have, so this is her grow out from about 6 weeks. And I think it looks pretty lovely. You don't back up. We can see that she's got a little less than an inch of grow out, but there's no line. She just looks like she's got a little shadow root. My other goal was to create that look, that soft, lived in, shadow rooty look without actually having to do a shadow root, because I don't want to complicate my time with extra steps if I don't need to. So I build the shadow root in by always feathering up to the top. When I feather, I always work from away from the face toward the face, because every time I go in with my brush, I'm gonna pick up more product. And if there's any spot I want to have more product, it's gonna be toward the face, not away from the face. So that also builds in a natural melt. Does that make sense?
You start applying your product away from the face first and then build up towards it.
Yeah, so I put, and I'll, again, when I'm showing, I put all my product on about an inch and some change away from the top of the foil, and then vertically I feather, and so naturally I'm picking up product as I feather. So if there's one place I want more of that product to be, it's gonna be toward the face, not away from the face.
Right.
So it's just, again, it's a natural, every little thing that I do is just reinforcing the contouring to be toward the face, where we want that brightness. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things too, I will say is I remember in beauty school, we were taught to make our clients chemically dependent on us, was one of the things that they like really reinforced. And I always felt like that was so icky. And so I do think that there's, and I don't necessarily think that a lot of us feel like this, because I think we're pretty great, but I do feel like they're in the hair industry is kind of this idea, like make them need to come back to you to get their retouch. So I feel like at first it could seem counterproductive to give someone a foil that essentially, my goal is like, if she never wants to get her hair foiled again, she doesn't have to, she can just grow it out. And it's gonna look natural and soft and just like sun-kissed over the summer, and then it naturally just gets darker over the winter. But since I started foiling like this, I think clients appreciate so much being taken care of and giving them the best hair, not only when they leave your chair that day, but over the next 6 to 12 weeks. that they don't feel like, oh my god, like that they just have beautiful hair from between appointments. And so my pre-booking has doubled, and my new client like retention off of recommendations has also like doubled since I started foiling like this. Did you have a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, no, I kind of foil somewhat similarly, but yeah, I love it because like, I have people that are like, no, you can never go anywhere.
Mhm.
You give me the best deal ever,
Yeah.
runs out, I don't have to worry if I can't get in like 6 to 8 weeks. Like,
Mhm.
I can go 12, I don't like to, but I can.
Yeah, totally. And really like, because that's what I want. I'm like the laziest client ever, and I don't want to have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to get my hair done. If it's like, oh yeah, that would be great if I could get my hair done today, that's awesome. That's what I want. So I feel like I've sort of just like trained my clients to desire low maintenance, and it's still beautiful. Like this is beautiful. Yeah.
It doesn't look low maintenance, that's the thing.
Yeah, it does. It looks, I mean, I think expensive. It looks really well maintained. It looks fresh all the time. Like this is 6 weeks and there's no
Yeah.
clear grow out from a bystander's viewpoint. That's pretty great. I want that.
Yeah, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
I know you can, but I can't, which I always appreciate.
Yeah,
Because sometimes I do go a month more than I should.
Yeah.
This time and schedule,
yeah.
and I never feel like, oh my gosh, it's so obvious.
It's so bad. Yeah, like I couldn't wait to come back in, but also like I can't wait to come back in because
it'll look good.
yeah, exactly. So I have pictures of actual my foils, of foils I have done, and some of them also have when they came in, so you can see their grow out, and then when they left. So I'll just start. I have them sort of ordered too, from like more brunette to like more blonde, and then you can see that Allie is right here. So this was her foil fresh. Last time she came in, like 6 weeks ago. And I just love that. It's so dimensional and bright.
Yeah.
And there's not a clear,
Line of demarcation.
there's not a clear line of demarcation, and there's also not a clear, you know, we have this natural brightness to, you know, more depth, but it's not like, oh, I can see clearly where you stopped foiling.
Mhm.
Because
Well,
it's,
and like her hair's tucked and you don't have like a weird
yep, no,
lines or
no
That's
little
true.
pores, like none of those little stripies. I love it. Okay.
I like that
so-
you stopped saying horizontal and you just called it hors.
Oh, did I? I'm none of those little horse. I don't even see those. That is hilarious. So, and I labeled. That's what we'll call them now. So, like for example, this one is like after 12 weeks. You know, obviously her hair's unfinished, and we can see that there's clearly grow out there, but it's still really soft.
Well, with silver haired clients, it's like the best for
I love
like
that.
blending and growing
After.
out too, because it's like, oh, it just blends in with their gray because those
Mhm.
are their natural platinum highlights.
Right? So I will let you guys just kind of,
Look through.
yeah, like you kind of scoop together, maybe some in the middle can, I'm gonna hand it to you, Kaylee. You can just go ahead and kind of swipe through and look at it.
This was after?
Yeah, this is after.
Okay.
Yeah, I labeled if it was a, like they came
That's
in.
pretty, yeah, that's really pretty, and I like how it blends their natural grays.
So I'm gonna pause this for a sec while you guys look through those.